We're live.
Is my mic on? Oh, it is. All right, we welcome everyone to an emergency board meeting tonight. Today is Thursday, January 13th, 2022. We're going to get started by indicating who's here. Starting with Terry.
Terry Bodden.
Connie Burgess.
Julie Jackson.
Chris Wynn.
Clark, you want to say? You're on.
Clark Nelson, by way of Zoom.
And
Nicole McDermott.
Karen Winder.
Rich Nye.
The purpose of this meeting is an emergency purpose. The Board of Education is calling this meeting to consider the urgent matter of shifting to temporary remote learning. Before we get to that, our hearts are all heavy as we sit around in the boardroom and joining in for our Hunter High community. This has been a tragic day for all of us, and it's never left our minds, and our prayers, thoughts go out to those families who have lost loved ones or whose loved ones are still critically injured. So to elaborate on that a little bit, we're going to turn the time over to Dr. Knight.
Thank you, Board President. Our hearts are wrenching this evening as a senseless tragedy occurred near Hunter High School with our students. As has been reported in multiple venues, two students, Paul Tahi and Tavani Lopati, have passed away, and we have Ephraim Asiata, a current student, who's in the hospital in critical condition. We would just simply request your thoughts and your prayers in behalf of these families, but not just these families, the students at that school, the staff, the administrators, and the community in general, as we all are mourning this tragedy and what it means for us within our community. We'll do all that we can to support these families and the students and the staff in every way possible. We'll have crisis counselors there. We had them there today. They'll also be there all day tomorrow at Hunter High and Hunter Junior High for those families and those students who have been afflicted in this tragedy. So we mourn the loss and we'll continue to support in every way that we can the families of those affected and the employees that have also have been affected in this as well, as we all have been. Thank you.
I know Principal Oaks recently spoke with the Asiata family. He remains in critical condition, and the family would appreciate prayers on behalf of their son, nephew, and cousin. So once again, we just appreciate those good thoughts, prayers being sent their way in this, like Dr. Knight said, senseless tragedy, but our love and support goes out to them. And this is a community thing, not just at Hunter High, but the whole, all of West Valley and beyond are hurting tonight, and our condolences and thoughts really do go out with those families. I'm happy that crisis counselors will be available, and we encourage all of those, if you need that help, please seek it out. There's nothing wrong with saying you're not okay mentally, and being okay is not being okay is okay. You just there's help available, and please take advantage of that. With that, Rich, we'll turn the time back over to you to speak to the urgent matter of remote learning possibilities.
Certainly. Thank you, Board President. As has been noted in current state statute 53G 9210, schools may only shift to virtual learning or distance learning if, I'll say it this way, if they do so more than 4 days or 1 day in a week, right? So current state statute suggests that we need to be in person for at least 4 days, unless we receive permission from the governor, the Speaker of the House, Senate President, and the State Superintendent. We received a letter this morning with permission by the governor and other state officials that this authorization would be provided to us in emergency circumstances or other areas where it might be advisable to move to a remote learning. And we are recommending at this moment, and I'll give a little more context as to the why, but we would suggest starting next Tuesday, January 18th, all schools in the Granite School District will enact distance learning for 4 days through January 21st. Students would return to in-person instruction on Monday, January 24th. Part of our effort in creating an online environment where distance learning can occur, we would expect that online learning we would use via the district utilized technology tools that we have. Instruction may include synchronous or that live video instruction, asynchronous, which is more self-paced, or a combination of both, where necessary and where opportunity would suggest. Thank you. Paper-based learning materials for students who cannot access those online learning options, given whatever the circumstances are, recognizing that we do provide hotspots for Wi-Fi, we do provide Chromebooks where necessary, but some print materials would also be available. Teachers and schools will reach out to the students and families with instructions on how to access that learning. Learning resources will also be available to be picked up at our schools. Grab-and-go breakfast at those schools and lunches will be available and the schools will share the times that those will be available. To make note, extracurricular activities held at the high schools level will proceed as normal, and that will be in cooperation with the administrator of those schools to determine which and how those activities might proceed safely. And where junior high and elementary schools have had scheduled in-person events this following week, we would ask that those get rescheduled. I just want to make clear that we fully recognize that distance learning isn't necessarily ideal, and we have concerns with respect to how it affects our students and not only their academic but their emotional well-being. Clearly, in-person instruction provides important structure and support for our kids. We have noticed, though, in the last 2 weeks, there's been certain compromises to the benefit of that in-person instruction. We've had over 2,200 teacher substitute requests, as well as a significant increase in student absences. And lastly, we've held test-to-stay events on Monday, on Tuesday, and today. And the results of those test-to-stay events, it was determined that nearly 1 in 5 students had tested positive for COVID. So we recognize that this is impacting not only on as COVID and people become ill and then they isolate, it creates staffing shortages, it creates student absenteeism from in-person instruction anyway, and compromises on many levels our ability to provide educational services to the extent that we would want and to be possible. It's our sincere hope that this brief pause from in-person instruction will provide both our staff and students an opportunity to reduce the spread of COVID and the highly contagious Omicron variant associated with that in our community right now. And I'd also say this, we also hope that it'll allow an appropriate amount of time for those afflicted who are ill to recover, to regain their health. We sure appreciate all the efforts that are being made in our schools and our communities to keep students and staff safe. And we see this as an opportunity to continue in delivering educational services while at the same time navigating our current course and hopefully mitigating the number of individuals that would go into isolation and or need to quarantine for exposure in these instances. And so with that, Board President, that's the context. I'm happy to take questions and or offer clarification on anything that may be needed.
Thanks, Rich. Any questions or comments from the board? The motion simply is to go to distance learning between the dates of January 18th through January 21st. Just to kind of explain kind of what a little bit of our thinking is, tomorrow is a non-student attendance day because of the end of term. Monday is a federal holiday with no school. And then you have that group of 4 days that we're discussing tonight, the 18th through the 21st, followed by a weekend. So if you look at the calendar, if you count tomorrow as day 1 through a week from Sunday is day 10, essentially we're getting a 10-day break from students being in the building with only 4 of them needing to be distance days. So the board, that's just kind of to explain, some people, you know, it's like, why are you picking these random 4 days? It's actually very strategic in how the calendar falls to get the benefit of a 10-day non-student attendance in our school buildings, basically at the cost of those 4 distance days. We're learning still, it's not optimal, but our expectation is that the distance learning is still going to happen. It is learning, and hopefully families at home will help and encourage their kids to engage. So are there any comments or questions for the board, from the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll just say thank you for explaining that, Rich. I think it is very important to understand that it's not just about, it is about not spreading more, but also that we can't, it's very difficult as a teacher to sit there with a class half full, because then you have to go back and reteach anyway. So I think it's a good decision, and with that, I would make a motion to do the 4 days next week as distance learning until is that January
18th through the 21st.
18th through the 21st.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the table to approve as distance learning days January 18th through the January 21st as distance learning days. Any further questions or concerns from the board?
I just wanted to slip in a quick comment, if I may, before the vote.
Go ahead, Clark, and then we'll come to Julie.
Thank you. But my only concern, well, not my only concern, but one significant concern I have here is that it's a slippery slope when we start going down this path. And as we saw in the past, 1 week can turn into 2, into 3, and into more. So I appreciate the motion is very specific for 4 days. That's limited to what we're voting on. And I'm very cognizant that we're not going to do anything further. It will require another board meeting and another vote in that regard. So I appreciate the specificity, and I just wanted to express my concern in that regard that I'm worried about the slippery slope of this turning into more, which I very much want to avoid.
Thank you, Clark.
I wanted to just recognize that one of the things that weighs heavy on this decision is that we know that it's hard for parents to have their kids home when they weren't expecting it, and it's hard to work when your kids are at home. And so that's something that's been weighing on my mind a lot through this decision. And I also, I had something else I wanted to say about it. Oh, I wanted to say that, one thing, COVID is very tricky where you have many different opinions about it, but one thing I think we all agree on is that we want our kids in school in person. And so I think it would be great if families could sit down, leaders in families, and think about what can our family do in order to help in 10 days, more people to be healthy. What can we do in order to make that happen? Because that's how we make sure that we get our kids back in school. So that will look different for many different families, but that's one way that we can take action as a community.
If I may, these are difficult circumstances and situations. In the past, our distance learning, we've had a lot of concern with, have not been as effective as in person. What steps are we taking to make sure, because we've had a lot of people just not sign on, not be involved. Are we going to monitor that, Rich? And if so, how? And what support are we going to give to those teachers who struggle with distance learning, and how to make it more impactful for the students?
Yeah, thank you. This last summer, specifically recognizing that who knows what would be in the future, right? Given what it is that we experienced in 2020 and 2021 school year. The district, with teachers during the summer, spent significant resources building up what that online presence looks like, right? In terms of the resources that are available online, what's built up in Canvas, for the event of circumstances like this, we would be able to have those resources at the ready for a lot. I would say also that many teachers have taken it upon themselves during this school year already to create an online presence on Canvas or Google Classroom that helps in that shift. In terms of engagement, that is very much at the top of our concern. Meaning, students, if they are in distance learning, are they accessing those learning resources, having access to the teacher engaging with them? And so really it is about, in terms of how we are expecting to understand what that level of engagement looks like. And for teachers, as they're working with their students, they also will be reaching out if they identify that some students aren't engaging, right? And then we can connect with the family, identify what obstacles may exist for them to engage, and then being able to reach out and try to meet them where their needs might be. And so for all the same reasons, we recognize that in-person instruction is what the vast majority of our students need and benefit the most from. And so it is with some reluctance that we even make this recommendation. But at the same time, we'll do all that we can to make sure that we're connecting with kids.
I know I have grandkids in Jordan School District, and they have certain times next Wednesday and Thursday that they're to log on and receive assignments, and that they are going to monitor that and actually take attendance. Do we have that capability?
We do, and it's more present, I would say, in secondary, although elementary can still engage in those same type synchronous practices. And so, yeah, we do.
So are our
have
principals prepared to visit with teachers to make sure they're checking up and assisting where they can?
Mm-hmm. And that'll be our message.
Please let them know how much we appreciate all their efforts.
Yep, certainly.
Our teachers and our administrators.
For those kids, I know most of our secondary students, they keep their Chromebooks with them. For those elementaries, students that may need to go with there being no school tomorrow and holiday on Monday, Tuesday morning, are elementary students from elementaries able to go to the office and pick up and check out a Chromebook so that they have the capability to actually do online learning?
Yep, so those schools will be reaching out, providing some communication to their families when those opportunities exist to pick up those resources. And some may even be tomorrow, right?
Was that your question, Chris? Oh, I'm sorry, I stole Chris's question.
So is it are teachers working tomorrow and administrators?
Yes.
So the schools will be open?
The schools will be open, yep, and they'll be able to reach out and get that information or get those resources. And to that end, teachers and administrators will be able to plan, given what's going on tomorrow. They had a full plate anyway, and we recognize that, but they'll also be able to spend some of that time tomorrow preparing for what next week will bring.
I just want to give a shout out to our teachers. We hear you. We know that this year has been incredibly frustrating. And, if my personal word for COVID is just pivot. We've had to pivot so many times. We try to do the best we can with the data that we're given. And Rich and his administration has done the same. And so we know this is a big ask of our teachers to be able to pivot once again and be able to ensure that online learning platform is ready to go on Tuesday morning for kids. We thank you sincerely for the work that you're going to do for our kids and our students across the district. And we recognize the efforts that are made, and we understand that pivoting is hard, change is hard. And if there's anything we've learned from COVID, it's you got to be flexible and like I said, be ready to pivot. So I just want to recognize that we have awesome teachers here in Granite, and I've actually spoken with some who are looking forward to distance learning because half their class is missing, and they would rather teach all of them online than half of them in person. But yet there's those that are out there that might not be in favor of distance learning as well. We recognize that we're all doing the best we can in strange, unprecedented times, and so I just wanted to mainly recognize our teachers in all of this, because that's where they're the ones where the rubber hits the road, and we appreciate and love the work that you do for us. Any other comments? Rich, go ahead.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, Board President, I didn't want to have necessarily the last comment, especially after what, what you've shared and those feelings we echo, right, in terms of the work that's being done. I would just say a little bit more context. Test to Stay has been suspended at the moment. The state doesn't have the testing resources to continue to do Test to Stay events. And it's been shown that Test to Stay was to mitigate spread with Omicron. It's spreading, right? And so really we're left under our current conditions in one of two courses of action. One, we could continue providing in-person instruction, recognizing that we have incredibly high rates of COVID cases on our campuses, or it becomes an or we can kind of transition. We want to be very mindful of that, and of course that's complicated, as I mentioned, because we don't necessarily have the staff and the students in attendance. And so with the suspension of Test to Stay, it's either we continue in-person instruction without testing and just acknowledge that we have significant cases on our campuses, or we'll take this mitigating approach, recognizing that the legislature has already identified that they'll visit this at the beginning of the session, right? So the legislative session's starting soon. So we anticipate that we'll be part of that conversation, and there will be some ongoing conversations as in the light of all of this, how do we, given the staffing shortages, given the high rates of incidences of COVID-19 among our students, staff, substitutes, and everyone in the community, that compromises the number of adults in a building, what does it look like moving into the future? And so we definitely hope that has been seen in other places with this surge, this quick surge, that there's a quick drop-off in what those cases look like as well. And so that's really where we're left in terms of how do we navigate this between just, again, acknowledging that we have a lot of cases, we keep schools open, versus, you know what, let's take this moment, work on this, get some people healthy that have been afflicted, and be ready to return in person on January 24th and hope things and conditions improve there. But of course, they'll be evaluated at that time, and the legislature's working on it as well.
Connie.
Just thank you for all the time and effort that the district has done, and Karen, your involvement to make sure that we can do what's possibly best for teachers as well as students. Thank you for your time and effort.
And can I just echo Connie, thank you for bringing this to us, that we could vote on this so soon and maybe try to catch that good only 4-day distant learning little gap maybe we can have, that we can just kind of maybe reset after. So I'm hoping that's what we can do. So thank you.
I want to explain a little bit of the timing of this so people know why we called an emergency meeting on a Thursday night at 9 p.m. This letter was brought to our attention today, was just sent out today indicating this, the dismissal of the Test to Stay program for right now. And of course, you know, it basically in that letter, it indicated that local boards basically have the responsibility to look at this, to look at our numbers and to choose our course of action. And we're, as a board, we're cognizant of the kind of, once again, the pivot, the change that we're going to require of everybody next week. Because of that, we decided to meet basically as early as possible, that we could gather ourselves so that we can give teachers and families as much notice, advance notice, even though it's an emergency situation, that classes will not resume in person Tuesday through Friday next week. So I just wanted to explain that we actually convened late tonight for the purpose of giving as much notice out to our community, our teachers, our families, our students, as early as we could. So hence the emergency meeting and the urgent matter of deciding what we're going to do. So we do have a motion on the table and a second to approve as distance learning days January 18th through the 21st. Are there any further comments or concerns?
I have one quick, so will we still have that Friday be the 28th? Isn't the 28th, January 28th, our
That's
non-student
following.
attendance day?
Yeah, but that's,
So we'll still have that day.
yeah,
We'll
because
still
Monday
have
the
that day,
24th,
right?
they'll still be in school.
Correct.
Yes.
So we will, because that is the same week, isn't it?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure we're
Yep,
keeping
good
that
question.
schedule.
All right, any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, board, for being responsive to all the phone calls and the texts today. It's been a little bit of a hustle since we've found out that this is kind of falls on our shoulders to be able to make this decision and choose a direction that we want to go. Did you have any other comments? Once again, our hearts go out to our Hunter community. Please keep them in your prayers, in your thoughts for those families and that entire community. With that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Clark. Thanks, everyone.